The laughter didn't fit the words. Brandon heard it and knew, the way you know a loose floorboard by the hollow sound under your foot. Saturday started the same way it always did. Charcoal bag in the trunk, a six-pack clinking, Vanessa humming without knowing she was humming. Minneapolis had a thin sun, the kind that tricks you into thinking it's warmer than it is. They drove to Adam and Stella's condo on Hennepin, the building with the ugly metal bird out front. Brandon parked, killed the engine, and watched Vanessa fix her hair in the mirror a beat longer than usual. "Ready?" he said. "Always," she said, without looking at him. The condo door swung open to noise and warm air. Adam's grill smoke spilled in from the balcony. Football on low. Stella waved a spatula like a baton. The circle was there. Olivia on the couch with her legs folded tight. Felicia in the kitchen arranging a tray like it mattered. Vanessa already at the wine. "Look who finally made it," Adam said. "The closer." Brandon smirked. "I only close on weekdays." He moved through the room like he always did, handshakes, quick jokes, eyes in the corners. His job trained him for this. Read faces, track patterns, notice what doesn't belong. The women clustered early, hips to the counter, backs to the room. He heard the first strange thing before he registered it. Stella said, "Double class," and they laughed too long. "Double class?" he asked, passing by. "Pilates," Stella said. "You wouldn't survive." "Probably not," he said, and kept moving. He took the tongs from Adam and turned the brats. The sizzle filled the silence between words. From the kitchen, another flare of laughter, bright, quick, over nothing. Vanessa said, "Blueberries," and they laughed again. "Blueberries." He filed it away. The night did what nights do. Beer disappeared. Smoke found his shirt. The game slid toward background noise. Brandon talked with Walter about snow tires, with Kevin about Q4 projections, with Adam about the grill's hotspot near the back left. Normal. On paper, perfect. But the women's rhythm was off. They spoke in pieces, then looked past him when he entered the kitchen, as if he was air. Not rude. Practiced. He stepped in for another beer, and Olivia cut a glance to Vanessa that said more than any word. Vanessa smiled too fast. "Want a lime?" she asked. "Sure," he said. She sliced it clean, handed him the wedge, and brushed his fingers like usual. Her ring flashed. He noticed a new bracelet. Silver, thin, not her style. "New?" he said. "Gift from Stella," she said, like it was rehearsed. Stella held up a matching bracelet and tilted her head. "Sisterhood," she said, and they laughed. He walked back to the balcony with his beer and the taste of lime. Adam flipped a brat and said, "You okay, man?" "Yeah," Brandon said. "You look like you're counting cards." "Habit." He wasn't sure when the unease started. Maybe the first time Vanessa said she was meeting Olivia for coffee, and came back with a new softness in her tone. Maybe when Stella joked about extra credit at the gym. Maybe now, when the sound in their laughter didn't match the words. It wasn't the content. It was the echo. Hollow like something under the floor. They ate. Plates scraped. The women stepped onto the balcony to feel the breeze. Even though the breeze had teeth, Brandon watched their reflections in the glass. For faces close, lips moving fast, eyes darting to the room behind them. He couldn't hear the words, just the cadence. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, burst of laughter. Vanessa touched her hair again. He leaned in to Adam. "You hear that?" "Hear what?" "Nothing," Brandon said. Later, when the plates were stacked and football gave way to a playlist, he stood by the counter and listened. He said almost nothing. Sales had taught him the value of letting silence do its work. People fill it. People expose themselves. He heard Felicia say, "Blueberries," again, and the table shook with a joke he wasn't allowed to hear. Vanessa's laugh was a little too bright, like a light turned up to hide a stain. "Inside joke?" Brandon asked. "Girl stuff," Olivia said. "Copy that." He took out the trash unasked, just to be alone for a minute in the hallway. Fluorescent lights hummed. He looked at the bags and the plastic sheen and the tiny life they carried. He tried to shrug it off the way a man shrugs off a muscle twitch. Don't make a thing out of nothing. Don't go hunting ghosts in a well-lit room. Back inside, Stella passed around dessert blueberry bars. The women laughed before anyone took a bite. Okay, Brandon said, smiling like he meant it. What am I missing? Nothing, Vanessa said. You're adorable. Adorable. He'd been called many things. That one didn't land right. He ate a blueberry bar. It was fine. Sweet, a little tart. He watched the four of them chew, look at each other, and then look away. On the drive home, Vanessa leaned her head against the window and scrolled her phone. Brandon kept his hands at 10 and 2 and pretended the radio mattered. Good night, he said. Yeah, she said. Fun. What's blueberries code for? He asked, casually, like a joke. She laughed, small and flat. Blueberries. He nodded. Right? He didn't push. Pushing is for people who want a scene. He wanted the truth. Not a story. Not a fight. Facts. In bed, Vanessa fell asleep fast. Back turned. Phone face down on the nightstand. Brandon stared at the ceiling and let the day run again like security footage. The bracelet. The glances. The wrong laughter. The word that wasn't a word. He'd spent his life trusting what things sounded like. A good engine. A clean close. A straight answer. Tonight, the sound was off. That's all. Not evidence. Not yet. He put an arm behind his head and watched the room settle. He told himself to drop it. He knew he wouldn't. Sometimes laughter hides more than it reveals. He'd find out what. The idea came to him Thursday night, lying awake beside Vanessa. She breathed evenly, phone face down again. The soft glow of notifications pulsing through the glass. He stared at the ceiling and thought about the way a lie needs sound to live. Truth, he figured, just needs a witness. Friday morning, on his lunch break, he bought a small voice recorder. Black, slim, about the size of a lighter. He told the cashier it was for interviews. She didn't care. No one ever does. Saturday, he told Vanessa he'd swing by Adam and Stella's early to drop off a new Bluetooth speaker Adam wanted to borrow. She smiled, kissed him, and said she'd come later after a quick stop with Olivia. He nodded, pocketing the recorder. His pulse didn't change. He was past emotion, only process now. The condo was quiet when he arrived. Early light came through the blinds. He set the speaker on the counter and took in the room. The cutting board, the bowl of lemons, the wine glasses that always appeared full by noon. The kitchen was the hub. Voices always passed through here, like a funnel. He placed the recorder behind a jar of coffee beans, angled toward the island. He pressed record, adjusted the jar half an inch, and left. That evening, the group gathered again. Brandon came in last, carrying a six-pack. The house already hummed with laughter and chatter. Vanessa was there, radiant, animated. She poured him a drink, her hand light on his arm. No tension, no sign she knew she was under observation. He played his part. He laughed at Adam's stories, flipped burgers, and asked about Kevin's project. But part of him was elsewhere, inside that small black rectangle, counting every minute it soaked up sound. He caught himself glancing toward the kitchen too often, forced his eyes away. Breathe, smile, look alive. That's what he told himself. Inside, he was a wire stretched tight. At 9, Vanessa said she'd stay for another glass. Brandon said he was calling it. He kissed her cheek, said something about an early client meeting, and walked out like a man who wasn't shaking from the inside. At home, he poured a whiskey, sat at the desk, and waited for her to come in before starting anything. By midnight, she was asleep on the couch, TV flickering low. He got up, went to the car, and pulled out the recorder. It was warm from hours of running. He plugged in headphones and pressed play. Static first, then laughter. Voices overlapping. Stella, Olivia, Felicia. Vanessa came through clear. Did you tell him about the blueberries yet? More laughter. Please, Olivia said. Kevin still thinks it's a workout thing. You should have seen Trevor's face when she called him Mr. Berries, Felicia said. God, stop. Vanessa's voice cut in, laughing hard. You're gonna make me choke. I swear. I thought Brandon was right behind me last time. His hand stopped moving. The glass trembled slightly on the desk. "He's too good for that," Stella said. "You married a trusting man. Enjoy it." Silence, then ice clinking in a glass. Vanessa again. "It's not like I planned any of it. It just happened. You know? You meet someone who listens, who notices. And then," Olivia interrupted. "Then you stop overthinking. You take what you need." More laughter. A phone buzzed in the background. "That's him," Vanessa said softly. "Trevor. He wants to meet next Saturday. Same place." Brandon leaned forward. His jaw flexed once, twice. No breathing now, just focus. The conversation moved on. Stella mentioning gym sessions. Felicia talking about business trips. More laughter, layered with wine and comfort. He listened to all of it. Every name, every coded phrase that suddenly made sense. He stopped the recording halfway through, stared at the wall for a long time, then started it again, from the beginning, forcing himself to hear it clean. No emotion, no interpretation. Just evidence. When it ended, the apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge. Vanessa's phone pinged once from the couch. He looked at her. Sleeping, unaware, peaceful. He wondered how long she'd worn that bracelet, the one Stella gave her. Maybe it was just decoration. Maybe not. He reached over, turned off the TV, and stood there in the dark. The kind of dark that isn't empty. It's waiting. He poured another whiskey and stepped out to the balcony. The city below was quiet, indifferent. He looked out at the lights and said, quietly, "Now I know. No anger. Just clarity." And clarity, he thought, is the start of control. He left the driveway 10 minutes after she did. Not rushed, not sneaky, deliberate. Her taillights disappeared into the Saturday morning haze. He followed at a distance that made him look like anyone else on the road. Just another man driving nowhere particular. Vanessa drove like she always did when she had somewhere to be. Careful, slow enough to look innocent. She wore a soft gray sweater he hadn't seen before and jeans that fit too right for a quick errand. Hair done, perfume light but new. He noticed everything. She hit the mall lot on 36th and parked in the side section, the one nobody uses. Brandon pulled in 3 rows back, behind a minivan, engine off. He watched her check the mirrors, take out a second phone from her purse. Small, silver, definitely not the one he'd paid for. She dialed, looked around, smiled. He could read lips enough to know she said, "Here." A few minutes later, a blue SUV rolled in, the kind that's too clean for winter. Driver's window down, music low. Trevor Hart, the car salesman from the dealership last spring, leaned out, grin casual, sunglasses on. Brandon felt something click inside him. Not rage, confirmation, the final piece sliding into place. Vanessa walked over, opened the passenger door like she'd done it before, and got in. The SUV idled, then eased out of the lot. Brandon started his car and followed. They drove west, toward the edge of town, past the gas station, the strip mall, the row of storage units. The kind of route that says routine, not accident. When the SUV turned into the Rainbow Motel, Brandon almost laughed. A name like that for something this gray. He parked across the street, behind a half-dead pine. I watched them get out. Trevor walked ahead, keys in hand. Vanessa followed, head down, same sweater, same jeans. Room 214. The curtain moved once. Then nothing. He sat there for 40 minutes. Long enough to know. Long enough to make it real. Then he took out his phone and did what had to be done. Click, Vanessa walking in. Click, Trevor unlocking the door. Click, room number. Click, SUV plate, timestamp clear. No anger. Just documentation. He saved each photo twice, backed them up to a hidden drive. Then he sat back and watched the world stay completely ordinary. Cars passed. A couple argued near the vending machine. Somewhere a dog barked. Everything normal except his life had split clean in half. At 12:46, the door opened again. Vanessa came out first, hair slightly different, eyes down. Trevor followed, laughing about something. She touched his arm. Brandon zoomed in, took 2 more shots, then dropped the phone to his lap and let out a slow breath through his nose. They kissed before she got in the car. Quick, familiar, practiced. He watched the SUV pull away, waited 2 minutes, then started his engine. He followed just long enough to see her head back toward home. By the time she walked through their front door, Brandon was parked 3 blocks away, watching her silhouette through the window. At the house, she moved normally. Shoes off, coat hung, phone down, calm. Brandon sat in the car and looked at the pictures again. The truth had a shape now. Faces, metal, light. He'd seen everything he needed to see. He closed the phone, set it on the passenger seat, and rested both hands on the wheel. There was no shaking, no adrenaline, no tears, just quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when a man stops guessing. His gut had been whispering for weeks. Today it finally spoke. The house smelled like vanilla candles and laundry detergent, her attempt at comfort. Brandon sat still, elbows on the table, the photos spread in front of him, each one a quiet knife. Vanessa came through the doorway, purse in hand, humming the same casual tune she always did after a coffee run. She froze when she saw the table. "What's this?" she asked, her voice small but trying to sound steady. "Sit," he said. She didn't move. He didn't repeat it. After a few seconds, she set her purse down and sat. He slid the first photo toward her walking into the Rainbow Motel. Her breath caught. The next one, her and Trevor close, smiling. She blinked fast, jaw tight. "Brandon." He slid the next, the license plate, the timestamp, the room number. He said nothing. Her voice cracked. "You followed me?" He looked at her, calm. "I confirmed." Silence. The kind that swallows everything else. Then came the collapse, the sigh, the shaking hands, the sudden rush of explanations. "It wasn't serious. It just happened. I felt lonely. It didn't mean anything." Brandon listened. Each word was noise bouncing off walls. He waited until she ran out of them. When she finally stopped, he leaned back. "Are you done?" She nodded, eyes wet. "Good," he said, "because I've got one more thing." He reached into his jacket pocket and placed the small recorder on the table. Her eyes widened before he even pressed play. Vanessa's laughter filled the room. The same laugh from the barbecues, light and sharp. Her voice followed. "He's too good for that. You married a trusting man." Her face broke. You recorded us?" He nodded once. "I wanted to hear the truth." "I did." Tears came fast now, ugly and real. She reached for him, but he didn't move. "Brandon, please. I'm sorry. It was stupid. It's over. It's..." "Who's Mr. Barry's?" he asked quietly. Her shoulders folded. "Trevor. Who else knows?" She looked away. He waited. The silence did the work. "Olivia," she said finally. "And Stella. And Felicia." He didn't react. "They all have what? Code words?" She nodded. "Yeah. Coffee runs. Gym sessions. Business trips." Brandon exhaled slowly through his nose. "You all thought you were clever." "It wasn't like that," she said. "It was just talk, support. We didn't mean..." He cut her off with a look. One that said enough. She sobbed into her hands, mumbling about mistakes and being lost, about how Trevor listened, how she felt invisible. He let her speak, let her empty it all out because every word built the wall higher between them. When she finally stopped, he stood. I walked to the sink, rinsed his glass. Calm, slow movements. She looked up. "Please say something." He dried the glass, set it down. "I heard everything I needed to hear." "I'll do anything," she whispered. "Please, don't tell anyone. We can fix this." He turned back to her, eyes steady. "You can't fix something you broke on purpose." Her face twisted in guilt. "I was stupid, Brandon. I'm so sorry." He nodded once, voice level. "I believe you're sorry, but sorry's not currency here." She reached for his hand. He stepped back. Her sobs came harder, but he didn't move to comfort her. He just watched, not cruel, just finished. "You know what the worst part is?" he said quietly. "You laughed. You all laughed about it. Like it was a joke. Like your husbands were a punchline. Her tears stopped for a second. She just looked at him, speechless. "That's what I can't unhear," he said. "Not what you did. How you sounded doing it." He gathered the photos into a neat stack, slipped the recorder back into his pocket, and stood there, the kind of stillness that feels permanent. She whispered, "What happens now?" He met her eyes. "That depends on you." She looked confused. "On me?" He nodded. "You're going to tell me everything. Names, times, places, all of it." Her voice trembled. "Why?" He looked down at her, calm, final. "Because if you don't, I will." That broke her. Between gasps, she started talking. Names spilling out like confessions in a cold church. Olivia's Thursday lunches. Stella's trainer. Felicia's coworker. The web unfolded, every strand rotten. Brandon just listened, filing each name away like a ledger. When she was done, he walked to the door, turned the lock and said, "We're done talking tonight." She looked up, hopeful. "So, what happens to us?" He glanced at the stack of photos on the table. "We'll see." Then he walked past her, down the hall into silence. She stayed there crying, the sound thin and distant, like laughter drained of its color. The kitchen still smelled faintly of wine and regret. Brandon sat at the table, black coffee in his hand, staring at the empty chair across from him. Vanessa shuffled in, red-eyed, quiet. Her voice came small. "Did you sleep at all?" He didn't look up. "Enough." She hovered by the counter, fingers worrying the edge of a napkin. "I told you everything last night. I swear. There's nothing else." He nodded once. "Good." Silence stretched thin between them. She finally asked, "So, what happens now?" He looked up, calm, unreadable. "We move forward." Her eyes widened. "You mean?" "I mean I forgive you," he said evenly. She blinked, stunned. "You forgive me?" "Yes." He let the word hang there, solid and heavy. "But there's a condition." She nodded fast, desperate. "Anything. You don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not Olivia. Not Stella. Not Felicia. No one." Her brow furrowed. "Why would I?" "Because I said so." He cut in. "You tell them, they'll panic. They'll cover. I don't want that." She swallowed. "You're not going to." "No," he said. "I'm not going to ruin anyone's life. I'm tired, Vanessa. I just want to move on." The lie was smooth, clean. It sounded like peace. Her shoulders loosened. Hope flickered back into her face. "Brandon, I'll do whatever you want. I swear. I won't say a word." He nodded. "Good. Then we start over." She stepped toward him, cautious, like approaching a wild animal that had stopped growling but might not be tame. "You mean it." "I mean it," he said, his tone flat enough to hide everything underneath. She exhaled in relief, half smiling. "Thank you." He didn't smile back, just stood, rinsed his cup and said, "I'm going to lie down for a while." "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. "No," he said without hesitation. "Go get some air. Clear your head." She nodded and slipped away, fragile but lighter, mistaking his restraint for forgiveness. When the door clicked shut, Brandon stayed still for a long minute, watching the morning light crawl across the countertop. Then he went to his desk, pulled out a notebook, and started writing. Dates, names, details. The list grew steady, methodical. Every confession from last night turned into a bullet point. At the bottom of the page he wrote, "No chaos, no noise, just the truth." Then he underlined it twice. That night, Vanessa stayed on the couch, her silence obedient, her tears replaced by cautious optimism. She believed him. She thought the worst was over. In the dark, Brandon lay awake, listening to her breathing from the other room. Calm, steady. He thought about the men, Adam, Kevin, Walter. Good men. Clueless, maybe, but undeserving of the joke that had been made of them. He imagined their faces when they'd hear the same voices he'd heard. He didn't crave vengeance. He wanted symmetry. He turned on his side, eyes open in the dark. Every move from here had to be clean, controlled. No second chances, no theatrics. He whispered to himself, forgiveness first, justice next. Then he closed his eyes, letting silence stretch, the kind that only exists when a man has already made up his mind. They met at a diner off I-94, the kind that still served coffee in chipped mugs and didn't care if you stayed too long. Adam came first, then Kevin, then Walter. They all looked tired in different ways. Men with jobs, routines, wives, and now the quiet suspicion that their world wasn't as solid as it used to be. Brandon sat in the corner booth, jacket still on, eyes steady. He'd told them he needed to talk, man to man. That was enough. When the waitress left the coffee pot, he didn't waste time. He set the small recorder on the table and the photos beside it. What's this? Adam asked. Evidence, Brandon said. You'll want to listen before you say anything. He pressed play. The laughter came first, high, familiar, cruel. Then Vanessa's voice, bright and confident. You married a trusting man. Enjoy it. The words landed like small explosions. No one spoke. Only the hiss of the coffee maker filled the air. Kevin leaned back, pale. That's Vanessa? Brandon nodded. And Olivia, Stella, Felicia. All of them. He slid the photos forward. Vanessa at the motel, Trevor at the door, time-stamped proof. This is mine, he said quietly. You'll need to find yours. Adam stared at the table. You're telling me, Stella? I'm not telling you anything, Brandon cut in. I'm showing you. You'll see it yourself soon enough. Walter's jaw flexed. How long have you known? Long enough, Brandon said. And you're just now. I waited until I could prove it. They sat in silence again. Each man absorbed it differently. Adam's hand tightened around his mug. Kevin's leg bounced under the table. Walter looked out the window, eyes hard, calculating. Finally Kevin spoke. What do we do? Brandon leaned forward. We don't do anything stupid. No yelling. No accusations. You get proof first. Once you know, you decide what kind of man you want to be after. Walter gave a dry laugh. You sound like you've already made up your mind. I have, Brandon said. But this isn't about me anymore. He turned off the recorder. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. We've been made into jokes, Brandon said. That ends here. Quietly. Adam exhaled. Jesus Christ. My wife. Kevin rubbed his face. Olivia's been saying she's doing coffee runs every Friday. Brandon looked at him. Then start with that. No one finished their coffee. They sat there, letting the truth reshape them. The kind of moment that doesn't explode. It just settles in and stays forever. After a while, Adam nodded once. All right, we'll each confirm it. Brandon nodded back. Then we meet again. Walter stood, face blank but eyes sharp. And when we do, then we decide what to do with it, Brandon said. They paid the bill in cash, old habit, unspoken. Outside, the air had that late-night chill that made breath visible. They didn't shake hands. They didn't need to. Each man walked to his truck or car in silence, carrying a different kind of weight now, no longer ignorance but truth. Brandon waited until they were gone, then got into his own car. He didn't feel lighter. He felt aligned. The burden was no longer his alone. In the rearview mirror, the diner's neon sign flickered. Half the word open dead. He smiled once, thin and controlled. The brotherhood wasn't built on friendship anymore. It was built on knowing. Adam never believed in subtlety. He went straight to the gym that afternoon, parked in the back, and waited. At 5:40, Stella arrived in her workout gear, same time as always. He watched her laugh with her trainer, Tom, the same guy she'd mentioned too many times. They stretched, joked, and touched their shoulders. Nothing out of line until she followed him to the back room, door half shut. 20 minutes later, they came out. Flushed, quiet, eyes on the floor. Adam didn't confront her there. He just watched, jaw set, and snapped one photo as she left. At home that night, she talked about a tough session. He said, I bet, and walked away. Tuesday, Kevin. Kevin was quieter, the kind who needed to see before he believed. Olivia told him she had a coffee run downtown. He said he had a client lunch, then followed her halfway across the city. She parked by the same cafe she always did, but didn't go inside. Instead, she waited. Jerry Coleman, her old coworker, arrived 5 minutes later. Kevin watched them kiss through the windshield before heading in. He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe wrong. Just lifted his phone, took 2 photos, and left. At dinner, Olivia talked about espresso prices and laughed too loud. Kevin looked at her hands, noticed no ring. He didn't ask where she'd left it. Wednesday, Walters was after work. Felicia always said she needed extra time at the office. He'd believed it for years. That night, he parked across from her building at 6, watching the stream of people leave. No Felicia. At 7, she appeared, laughing with a man he didn't recognize. Mark Collins, her coworker. Brandon had the name already. They crossed the street together, casual, close. She reached for his arm without thinking. They checked into a hotel. Walter stayed long enough to see the room light flicker on. He whispered, "All right," to no one, then drove home. He didn't break anything, didn't drink, just sat on the porch until the sky went dark. Thursday, the message thread. The group chat Brandon made, 4 men, 1 name, Truth. Adam sent the first photo. Kevin followed. Then Walter. No words, just evidence. Brandon typed, "Now we all know." Adam replied, "We will meet after this." Kevin wrote, "They think they're still covered." Walter ended it. "Not for long." No one used emojis. No one said how they felt. That wasn't the point. Friday, the collapse. By week's end, the women's coordination started to fray. Stella called Vanessa twice that morning, no answer. Olivia texted, "Need to talk." Felicia skipped a dinner she'd planned. The laughter that once filled their group threads went silent. The inside jokes stopped. Whatever they thought was secret now echoed back at them in quiet suspicion. Brandon said nothing to Vanessa. He moved through the house as if nothing had changed. She sensed something but couldn't name it. He caught her studying him, cautious, uncertain. She thought she'd been forgiven. She hadn't realized forgiveness was the mask he wore to finish the job. By Sunday, the Saturday circle was gone. Texts went unanswered. Calls went short. The women still smiled in public, but behind every smile was a question. Who knows what? The answer was simple. All of them. She came home humming again, soft, hopeful. It had been a week of cautious peace, and she'd convinced herself it meant recovery. Brandon sat in the living room, the lamp low, a quiet song playing that didn't match the moment. "Hey," she said carefully. "You're home early." He nodded. "Sit down." The tone stopped her mid-step. She obeyed. On the coffee table sat the same manila envelope, the photos, the recorder, the notes. Untouched since that night, but no longer hidden. "Brandon, I thought we were past this," she said, voice shaking. "We are," he said. "You're moving past it tonight." Her face stiffened. "What does that mean?" He leaned back, arms folded. "It means you're leaving. Pack your things." She stared at him, then laughed, short, brittle. "You said you forgave me." He nodded slowly. "I lied." Tears welled fast. "You can't do this. We talked, we agreed. We agreed you'd keep quiet," he said. "You did. Thank you." "Brandon, please." He cut her off with a look. Calm, steady, final. "Don't." She froze. He stood, picked up the suitcase beside the couch, and set it by the front door. Her bag, her coat, her keys already inside. "You packed my things?" "Everything you'll need." Her voice cracked. "You're throwing me out?" "I'm letting you go," he said. "Different thing." She stepped closer, desperate now. "We can fix this. We can start over." He shook his head. "No, you already started over. I'm just ending it." Her tears turned angry. "You can't just erase a marriage." He looked at her, unblinking. "I can end one." The words hung heavy. "You told the others, didn't you?" she said, the realization hitting mid-breath. He nodded once. "They know. Their husbands know. Everyone knows." Her face went pale. You destroyed everything." "No," he said quietly. You did. I just showed them the mirror. She covered her face, sobbing, pacing. What am I supposed to do? Start somewhere else. Learn what it feels like to live honestly. She glared through tears. You think you're better than us? No, he said. Just done pretending. She went quiet then. The sound of her breathing filled the room, shallow, shaky. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. I don't have anywhere to go tonight. He nodded toward the couch. You have until morning. She didn't thank him. She just stared. At him, at the suitcase, at everything she'd lost that she hadn't noticed slipping away. He opened the front door and stood aside. You'll want to start before sunrise. For a second, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she picked up the suitcase and walked to the door. She turned back once, face streaked with tears. Do you hate me? Brandon looked at her for a long time. No, I just don't know you anymore. She stepped outside. The door closed behind her with a sound softer than she deserved. Through the window, he watched her car pull away, taillights disappearing into November dark. A few curtains across the street shifted, neighbors pretending not to look. He didn't wave, didn't sigh, just locked the door, turned off the lamp, and stood in the quiet. For the first time in months, the house felt like his again, empty, honest, still. He whispered once to no one, "That's done." Then he sat down, closed his eyes, and let the silence sit beside him like an old friend. The snow outside had turned gray by March, the way Minneapolis snow always does when it's tired of being pure. Brandon sat at the same corner table at McGregor's, nursing a beer he didn't need to finish. Adam, Kevin, and Walter filled the booth around him. No pretense, no wives, no ghosts, just men with stories they didn't have to retell. It feels weird being here without them, Kevin said. Adam smirked. Feels better, though. Walter lifted his glass. The lessons learned the hard way. They clinked without ceremony. Conversation stayed light. Sports, work, random talk. But underneath there was something solid. No more checking phones. No half-truths hanging in the air. Just peace. Adam had started training kids at the park. Kevin buried himself in his new regional position. Walter was packing for a move to Denver, saying he needed clean air and no reminders. Brandon just listened, smiling small. You good? Adam asked him. Brandon nodded. Yeah, finally. They sat in silence for a bit, the kind that feels comfortable between men who've already said the hard parts. Kevin chuckled. You remember blueberries? They all laughed, low, real, without edge. Never eating one again, Walter said. Good, Brandon said. Means it worked. What worked? Adam asked. The silence, Brandon said. They talked themselves into trouble. We didn't. They nodded, understanding. Some victories don't need parades, just quiet. Later, when the crowd thinned, Brandon stepped outside. The night was sharp, the kind that woke your lungs. He looked across the street, neon lights reflected in puddles, the world still moving. Behind him, laughter carried from the bar. Their laughter. Not the hollow kind he'd heard months ago. Real sound. Honest. He stood there for a while, breathing, letting the cold cut through everything soft. No anger left. No ache. Just stillness. The truth hadn't set him free. It had just made him clean. He walked back inside, back to the booth, back to the men who'd seen what he'd seen. They didn't toast this time. I didn't need to. They just sat there, talking about nothing, which finally meant everything. The laughter that rose from that table didn't hide a thing.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.